Alright, so let's look at this problem, and I'm going to try to write here on the screen. Oh, it's not going to work. Let's see. Maybe it'll let me cut and paste this. Okay, so it won't let me cut and paste, but we'll just sort of flip back and forth. We're going to do A versus B, A versus C, A versus D, and then we'll do B versus C and B versus D and C versus D. Now that's 6 comparisons, that's 6 possible points that someone could win, and the truth is that somebody can't win that many points because they're not in every comparison. So let's do A versus B first and see who wins that fight. Alright, so A versus B. Let's see, A will get these 8. A will also get these 12. That's 20 already. And let's notice 20, and there's 14 here, that's 34. Half of that is 17, so 18 is a majority. So anybody who gets at least 18 wins. So already A wins this first one. So let's go back here, and that's A wins. That's 1 point for A. All right, now let's go to A versus C. So going back here, A wins these 8. It also wins these 12 over C, so that's 20 already. A wins that head-to-head. So going back here, A wins again. That's 1 point for A. All right, now let's do A versus D. All right, so going back, A versus D, A wins these 8, but D gets these 12. And then let's see, A gets these 5, that's 13 for A, still 12 for D. And then D gets these 9, 9 and 12 is 21, so D wins that head-to-head. That means D gets a point. All right, B versus C. So B versus C. C gets these 8 because it's above C in this column, or above B in this column. C gets these 12. That 8 and that 12 is 20. And so C wins the head-to-head with B. That's 1 point for C. All right, now B versus D. Let's compare those two. B is higher than D, so it gets these 8. However, D is the highest here. It gets these 12. Here, B gets this column, so 8 and 5. So far, B has 13 and D has 12. And B gets these 9, so that's 22 for B, which is more than half. So B wins this head-to-head. That's 1 point for B. All right, now C versus D. C versus D. C is higher than D, so C is going to get these 8. D, however, is going to get these 12. And then D is higher here, so it gets these 5, that's 17. But C is higher here, and it gets 17. Now they both have 17, so it's a tie. Sorry, a dog in the background. So what we have here is C and D tie, which means they each get a half a point. So 1/2 point for C and 1/2 point for D. So at this point, we would add up the number of points, and the one with the greatest number of points wins. In this case, it's going to be A. A's got 2 points. B has 1 point. C has 1.5. And D has 1.5. So C and D would tie for last place. All right. But, I'm sorry, B is last place because it's only got 1. So they would tie for second place. So B, it's asking us how many points does B have? B has 1. So we would go back here, and what we fill in here for candidate B would have been 1. Now hopefully that will help you get through those two questions.